Well, salutations, fellow idiots. Welcome back to yet another episode of that full moon madness, baby. So tonight we have for you our next review in our current wave of reviews. This is one that we talked about as far back as the pilot swoop special for the series. It's one that I thought initially that I had never fucked with as a kid. But then after watching it, all these awesome memories of renting it at least a couple of times came rushing back. It is not the best full moon movie in their library. It's certainly middle of the road, but in a good kind of way. There's definitely a reason I didn't rent it all the time as a kid, and instead opted for its sequel. And that is 1993's Mandroid. Like I said, this is mediocre in the best kind of a way. It's not amazing, but it's certainly not, unwatchable. It is a good example of Full Moon maybe being a little overly ambitious with the project and not quite having everything together to deliver on that ambition. We'll talk more about that as this goes on. But yeah, Mandroid. Mandroid was written by Earl Kenton and Jackson Barr. It was directed by Jack Ersgaard and produced by Charles Band, along with an assortment of European motherfuckers. It stars Brian Cousins, Jane Caldwell, Michael Della Femina, Robert Simmons, Kurt Lowens, Patrick Ersgaard, and Eon Haddock. Has cinematography by Vlad Penascu. Was edited by Mark Manos and Barry Zetlin. It's got music by David Arkenstone. It was distributed by Full Moon Entertainment and released at some point in 1993. This was one of several movies that they shot over in Romania back in the day. Originally, Charles had planned on releasing it under the Empire label as Mind Master, with Jack Kirby of all people attached to the product. They later retooled it and did it, obviously, during the early 90s as a Full Moon feature. Basic gist of Mandroid is deep in Russia's backcountry, this Dr. Carl Zimmer, along with his partner Ivan Drago, his assistant Benjamin Knight, and his daughter Zana have developed this robot called Mandroid that is controlled by like a VR headset, some gloves, and a keyboard. And essentially what it does is it helps them perform all kind of tasks that you would need a remote Mandroid unit to perform. Specifically, it helps them deal with these radioactive materials created by injecting this secret formula into these mushrooms that they found deep within the earth to create a sort of super fuel that can also cure all types of diseases. It's just this wonder substance, They have arranged to sell this to the United States through one Dr. Wade Franklin, and this CIA operative named Joe, played by Patrick Ersgaard, brother of the director, is there to kind of facilitate all this, make sure that it's legit, and write the check provided that the Mandroid and the supercon, as they call it, the substance they create with these mushrooms, is legit. Ivan Drago, Dr. Zimmer's partner in all of this, and designer of a lot of Mandroid systems, is pretty pissed off because he figures selling it straight to the Americans is like the easy way out. They could really fetch a higher price from like different bidders if they take it and try to sell it to world powers as a weapon rather than, some type of research aid. So naturally, this creates a rift between the two doctors. Dr. Zimmer is much more of like a kind-hearted, benevolent scientist trying to do this stuff for the betterment of the world. Ivan Drago is more of a mad scientist dude that's trying to do what mad scientists do, create rad shit and sell it to the highest bidder for, nefarious purposes. He tries to arrange with Agent Joe, we'll call him. I forget what his last name is. He's just Joe. He's the director's Scandinavian brother playing an American CIA operative. He tries to do some backdoor dealing with him to get him to let him, sell the Mandroid to the highest bidder. It doesn't exactly work out, so he decides to just hire an assassin to kill everybody, break into the lab, and steal the shit. Naturally, this goes sideways. He knocks Benjamin Knight into this, cryo container that houses a bunch of the Supercon formula. In the process of trying to steal the Supercon, the daughter, Zana, shoots the container and it explodes in his face, horribly disfiguring him. He runs off into the night, and they're kind of stuck here trying to pick up the pieces and deal with the corpse of the assassin that they had to dispatch. Of course, old Ivan Drago does what mad scientists do, and he enlists the help of a mute homeless man as his sidekick to craft him a metal mask so he can go full fucking Dr. Doom on everybody's ass and hatch various plans to attempt to steal the Mandroid. He also has an ace up his sleeve in this helmet that he himself had developed that allows him to control the Mandroid Mandroid with thought alone. You don't need the gloves or the treadmill or the keyboard or any of the other equipment. So naturally, the Mandroid kind of trades hands, and, you know, some people get taken hostage, and there's some firefights that take place. Lots of action, lots of properly campy performances, and lots of fun. That's pretty much Mandroid in a nutshell. It's just badass comic book inspired science fiction that, you know, revolves around robots and mad scientists and, you know, CIA operatives doing some backdoor deals and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Eventually it turns out that Agent Joe is either feigning to be in cahoots with Drago, or he really is trying to do these backdoor deals with him, and this leads to the final confrontation of the film, which is just really an excuse for them to fire off a bunch of blank rounds and explode some squibs. Mandroid certainly got its issues. One of the main things people criticize it for is the sort of somewhat wooden, campy performances by the cast. I think most of them are fairly decent, especially the dude playing Agent Joe. I think Jack Ersgaard was his name. Excuse me, Jack directed it. Patrick plays Agent Joe. That guy especially is an absolute treat through the entire movie. The girl that plays Xana is super hot. The dude that plays Ivan Drago is just properly kind of slimy and bone-chilling, and honestly would definitely be in my top 5 of all-time favorite Full Moon villains. The way they kind of very subtly set it up for the sequel, Invisible Chronicles of Benjamin Knight, is pretty genius as well. I mean, you got Wade paralyzed from like a shot to the thigh, which I don't understand, and his shoulder. For some reason that puts him in a wheelchair, but makes him even more reliant on Mandroid to perform any type of heroism. You've got Benjamin Knight turning invisible because of his exposure to the Supercon, and then obviously you've got Ivan Drago set up as our Doctor Doom. They really missed an opportunity after, you know, Invisible not to do a crossover between all of the guys from this movie and its subsequent sequel and Dr. Mordred along with Dollman. Just imagine how awesome that could have been. Man, I tell you, that lemon juice really is the key. In any case, as I'm sure I've stated several times, Mandroid is a lot of fun. Alright, I think if they had had more money to go towards special effects, they had spent less time re-explaining the plot over and over again, made it a little bit less wordy and a little more action-packed, it would have been a lot better than it turned out to be. And they kind of rectified some of that in the sequel, Invisible, The Chronicles of Benjamin Knight. It was certainly fascinating learning that Jack Kirby was involved in this at some point, and that it was one of the projects that they had intended to do in the Empire days. I'm sure the movie would have turned out leagues better had that actually been the case. If we'd got Mindmaster instead of Mandroid, could be a different story. But we didn't. We got Mandroid, and we also got the always awesome Invisible, The Chronicles of Benjamin Knight to follow it up. Certainly not a high point in Full Moon's like early 90s catalog, but it's not the lowest point either. If you like cool comic book inspired science fiction, robots, dudes with metal masks, titties, you're going to enjoy Mandroid. Is it one that you're going to put up on a pedestal, or that's going to make it into your top 10 Full Moon movies, or anything like that anytime soon? Probably fucking not. But you certainly will likely not regret the time that you spend with it. So get the fuck out there and check it out as soon as possible. It is available on Tubi, or through the Amazon Prime Full Moon channel, or through Full Moon's own streaming service, Full Moon Streaming. As always, I have been Mosley, you've been a bunch of sexy fucking beasts, and this has been yet another episode of that Full Moon madness, baby. Now, I was going to go directly into the sequel after this, but, you know, in the interest of mixing things up a little bit, keeping the variety going and not burning you guys out on Mandroid or Benjamin Knight, we're going to go ahead and instead cover H.P. Lovecraft's Lurking Fear as our next review. So look forward to that. Cheers, thanks for watching, we'll see you back here real soon.
The world of Full Moon lives online at fullmoondirect.com. Classics like Puppet Master, Demonic Toys, Subspecies, and more recent favorites Ginger Dead Man, Evil Bong, Killjoy, and more can be found at fullmoondirect.com on DVD, Blu-ray, limited edition box sets, replicas, toys, shirts, and more. Only available at fullmoondirect.com.